Yeah, let's see what Bill Burr got to say about No Country for Old Men. Let's go.
I actually love Jacksonville, and it's like one of those, like a Coen brother movie hotel. Like you feel you're in No Country for Old Men, and you're gonna see that your lock's gonna go flying across the room. Dude, if I was drinking, dude, I would get that's what the fuck I would watch tonight.
Oh, you know,
I would get a giant ice cube. I would tip the bottle like that. I would fill it up, and I would sit and watch that masterpiece. I love that movie. That's the reason why I bought my old truck.
And No Country for Old Men is the reason why I ended up getting my old 68 F100, because I was trying to figure out the classic car I wanted to get. And I was always a truck guy. And then I saw that opening scene where all those guys were dead, and there was all these late 70s to like 1980 Ford trucks. And I was like, an old Ford truck, the short bed, that could be all right. And that's how I ended up with my truck, because of the Coen brothers. I got to be honest with you, man. I don't think the Coen brothers get brought up enough. And I'm not going to start an argument here, but there's certain directors, when they talk about the greatest American directors, get brought up. And I don't, if the Coen brothers are brought up, they're usually brought up fourth or fifth.
so
I love
beautifully
that.
written.
I
And
love
once
that. That writing is incredible. I haven't watched that movie in years because I owned it on VHS. I owned it on DVD. Whenever that came out, whatever the thing was, DVD. I bought that like 3 times because I wore it out.
Okay, the more people are staring at their phones and not looking at each other, I feel like the less fights there are. I swear to God, you could stab somebody in the neck like 4 times before anybody would even notice. Unless the person started kicking their legs like that police officer in the beginning of No Country for Old Men and was leaving the black marks on the floor.
Damn.
No Country for Old Men. Everybody was just like, what the f*** when that
No,
thing
that
ended.
year-
People walking out going, I can't even tell you what the f*** that was about. I think No Country for Old Men, the main character is, Jones is the main character of that movie to me. And that is about a guy
Oh, right.
who time has passed him by.
Right.
And he's basically chasing a ghost the whole movie. That's why he never sees the
Right,
guy.
right.
And the last words of the serial killer guy there, he says to the kids, he goes, you never saw me. So I thought that was the metaphor for the ghost. This is how I took it, but it actually makes you think. And I feel like that he was chasing the ghost. That's why when he was standing behind the door, he wasn't there and all
Right,
that
right,
weird
right.
shit. How come we didn't kill him?
Oh,
it's
yeah.
because the ghost he's chasing is the past and the way the things were. He can't even get his head around the level of violence that's going on. And I think that Javier Bardem was a metaphor for the level of violence. It almost wasn't, he was there, but he wasn't.
You know what's funny? One of my favorite movies of all time is No Country for Old Men. I can't remember if I even said this already. No Country for Old Men. I just watched it again last night, and I always forget if it's Old Men or Old Man. I think I already said that in this
Old
podcast,
Man.
didn't I? Did I? I don't fucking know. Anyways.
Yes. I think it's one of the greatest movies that I've seen. You know what I'm saying? Just the suspense. You know what I'm saying? You was on the edge of your seat. As soon as everything after when Josh Brolin getting the money, it was intense because you didn't know, because Javier Bardem was after his ass, and you knew he was gonna get him. So, I mean, yeah, that movie there, like I said, Javier Bardem, his villain, that villain was probably like, he's not like a superhero or a super villain or anything like that, but he's like up there with like a Heath Ledger Joker. You know what I'm saying? Just an iconic villain that came out of nowhere. I mean, the Joker didn't come out of nowhere, but I think Heath Ledger's performance did. That's kind of the same thing. Like Javier Bardem, it's like, what the heck? You know what I'm saying? I remember niggas was dressing up as Javier Bardem in Halloween and shit, like his hair, and it was scary, man. And what was the weapon he had, or the gun? It was like a cow. It punched a cow in the head. I forgot what it's called, but yeah, everything about him was terrifying. Everything about the movie was good. You know what I'm saying? But I could watch that right now. I could watch that again right now, for real. On the real, I could watch that right now. Man. But yeah, Bill Burr, I think he broke that down well. One of his favorite movies too. I can see why.
David Fincher is meticulous.
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 Meticulous guy who's really driven.
He knows what he wants, and he often turns to the post-production pipeline to make it happen. When Fincher needed a period-accurate 1960s San Francisco skyline for Zodiac in 2007, he built it from scratch on a computer. When he needed a window display of 70s-era televisions playing the news and Mindhunter, he built them from scratch. This blood spatter, that's all CGI. So are those trees, and this car, and that casino, and this golf ball. But it's also this inch-perfect ideology that would eventually lead Fincher to adopt all-digital cinematography 13 years ago and not look back. So when it came time to make his 2020 film Mank, a love letter to 1930s Golden Age Hollywood, Fincher had a problem.
Let Neptune strike ye dead, Winslow!
This is a shot from Robert Eggers' The Lighthouse from 2019. It was shot on 35mm film with black and white film stock, and it used antique Baltar lenses made over 80 years ago. The goal?
To create an atmosphere. It's all to transport us further back into time.
Like The Lighthouse, Mank isn't just set in the past. As Donald Burt, Mank's production designer, put it, Fincher wanted the film itself to seem like something made from the period. He wanted the movie to be like you were in a vault and came across Citizen Kane, and next to it was Mank.
I've got a great idea for a picture, Louis. A picture I just know you're gonna love.
So the problem? Well, Citizen Kane, like The Lighthouse, and like every movie made before 1987, was shot on film. It was shot on black and white film stock, and it was shot through lenses made over 80 years ago. And David Fincher shoots on digital. Fincher wanted the character, the texture, the imperfections of vintage film, and the atmosphere of old Hollywood, but without the variability of the equipment used to make it. So what did Fincher do? He faked it. Every frame of Mank has been digitally altered for the precise effect that Fincher intended, and like with past films, that process began with manipulating the world. Clouds were drawn into open skies, the kicked up dust of passing cars was multiplied, the brilliance of light sources were adjusted to match the gleam of vintage lamps, stray hairs over actors' eyes were digitally erased. Oh, and these windows? They're fake, added in post because the windows in the real location were on the wrong side of the room. So then what about the look of the film itself? Its grain, its imperfections? Well, that's all digital too. Mank was shot in super high resolution on an 8K digital camera with a custom monochromatic sensor made specifically for Fincher. All the images were then degraded, softened, digitally scratched, and applied artificial grain to resemble the look of films of the era.
I think that, you can safely say that anything that you can get with a film camera, you can emulate with a digital camera if you're willing to give it enough time and really look at an image and be able to describe what it is that you love about it. You can emulate anything.
Fincher even added lateral wobbling, an ordinarily optical consequence of a film frame passing through the sprockets of a projector, as well as fake cigarette burn changeover cues, something he demonstrated once before in Fight Club.
That's the cue for a changeover. He flips the projectors, movie keeps right on going, and nobody in the audience has any idea.
Digital manipulation wasn't the only way David Fincher drew on the look of old Hollywood.
I must confess, I must answer this in a way that I loathe.
In 1941, Orson Welles, a 25-year-old stage and radio actor at the time, completed what many have considered the most important film ever made. Citizen Kane redefined what was possible in the art of filmmaking, particularly when it came to the innovations of its cinematographer, Greg Toland.
He acted kind of funny sometimes, No, I didn't. Yes, he did crazy things sometimes.
Much of Mank's visual language is pulled straight from what Toland first popularized back in 1941, techniques that may seem trivial today, but at the time just weren't done.
I warn you, Jedediah, you're not gonna like it.
Low-angle shots to imply power dynamics, low-key lighting, a technique borrowed from German Expressionism, but that would go on to define the film noir of the 1940s and 50s, superimposed imagery, deep focus shots that could show layered narratives in a single all-in-focus frame, and quite Notably, long, omniscient, seemingly impossible tracking shots, a move that has long since permeated across Fincher's filmography, aided of course by CGI. But Eric Messerschmidt, Mank's cinematographer, decided to challenge himself even further by employing some old-school techniques that digital photography and a decent film budget have made increasingly obsolete.
Oh, I can see it, even in the dark.
Well, what can I tell you, Mank? Marion, Doris.
In one scene, where Mank and Marion are walking through the gardens of Hearst Castle, the sequence is designed to be a romantic, moonlit stroll. And it is, except that the entire scene was shot in broad daylight. For a long time, shooting day for night, a trick made possible by filming and then underexposing the image, was the only way to get enough light into the camera outdoors. And if you watch old or low-budget movies, you can usually spot the deception by the long, stark shadows cast by the sun. Old Hollywood inventions and digital trickery, combined with countless other techniques like capturing instruments on old microphones or digitally compressing Mank's sound and then re-recording it inside an old theater, account for just some of the magic that went into engineering Fincher's newest and oldest film. On set, Fincher will do 75 takes in a day, at 9 minutes a take, with 3 cameras running at once, to get what he wants from his actors in lockstep with his crew. The right performance he won't fake. When Gary Oldman asked Fincher for a fake nose and to pluck his hairline to better resemble the real-life Herman Mankiewicz, Fincher said no. He said there can be no artifice between us and you. Character and drama, he won't fake. But if any part of Fincher's meticulously realized worlds can be sculpted to his wishes in post-production or with the right technology, well, then the other way is wrong.
That's it. Hello. Hello. Stand by. I'll tell you if we want to run it again.
Well, how about it, Mr. Ralston?
How do you like it, boys?
Well, 70 years in a man's life.
That's a lot to try to get into a newsreel.
I am cold.
Still with us, Brett?
Right.
Yeah. Oh, I feel dead. Anybody ever tell you look dead, man?
I'm about to draw a ridiculous connection between two unrelated pieces of media, but here we go. I went to see Alien in the theater for its anniversary, and while I've seen it a million times, there were details, frames, techniques, shot compositions I never would have noticed in a smaller format. And okay, it obviously predates this by like 3 decades, but I was weirdly reminded totally of The Nick, that obscenely overlooked Clive Owen show from 2014 that ran for 2 seasons on a network no one ever heard of, a show directed and shot by Steven Soderbergh, a show that from a cinematography perspective remains one of the greatest, most raw things I've ever watched. The very first shot of the show is just a 25-second POV of Clive Owen's shoes. Everything in it is handheld and organic, so many dirty shots, voyeuristic shots, with the camera always hiding behind out-of-focus objects in the foreground. Or, I mean, just look at this scene. Literally half the frame here is taken up by a guy we can't even see. Plus you have a ton of great long shots with multiple compositions, multi-character staging. Or these shots I love that start off on something that seems totally superfluous to the scene until suddenly it isn't. Or others where what's out of focus and remains out of focus tells us just as much of a story as what's in focus. No two shots in the show are alike, and believe me, I'm barely scratching the surface here, so I don't know. Like, if you're interested in seeing a deeper dive into this, drop me a line down below, because I'll probably do it. But anyway, it all just goes to show that there really aren't rules to this stuff. If you're willing to not just copy everything you see around you, to not just grab your masters, your mediums, your reverses, A, B, C, and D, and everything you're told you need, then shooting a movie becomes about one thing: capturing what you want to capture, no more, no less. And that is precisely what makes the original Alien from 1979 such a gorgeous, gorgeous, dirty, gorgeous movie.
You remember anything about the planet?
What's the last thing you do remember?
It's hard to believe it now, but this was really Scott's second movie he ever did. After a career of videos and commercials, he wasn't a horror guy, he was never a science fiction guy before this, and he didn't set out to make a VFX film either. He set out to make a drama about 7 very real characters, and everything the camera in Alien does is in service to them, their reality, their experience. The driving philosophy on Alien was to keep everything feeling organic and real, not science realism per se. I mean, why are papers fluttering on a spacecraft? Why is it raining in a landing gear bay? As Scott has said, I mean, if it looks cool, it looks cool. But it had to remain realistic in the sense that this isn't fantasy, and maybe more to the point, it isn't the super clean, hyper-elegant look that we got in most science fiction up until that point. Scott, his production designer Michael Seymour, Roger Christian, the art director, Carlo Rambaldi, everybody tried distancing themselves as much as possible from those films aesthetically so that everything here would be grungier, more blue-collar, never quite so clinical, never luxurious or at ease, and, of course, never static. Like on The Knick, Scott's camera is always moving. If it isn't in the action, fixated on a character or dynamic, then it's hiding voyeuristically from behind something, peering through. If a seemingly innocuous, inconsequential object or piece of a set is in the foreground or taking up center frame, that's because it's probably going to become important later on in that shot. Or maybe a character who's in focus has no lines while a character off-screen is speaking.
All the other channels are dead.
And a character out of focus only comes into focus at the end to respond.
Kick on the floods.
Even before characters are introduced, Alien is a film as much about reaction as it is about action. The camera tells us what's important, and what's important isn't always the loudest voice in the room.
You too, Lambert.
And what's in frame isn't always concerned with being captured in perfect clarity as long as the truth of the moment is being conveyed. Here's my favorite example of this stuff. This is a 2-minute and 18-second long shot of the camera moving from Kane in a wide over to Ash at the table and then pans slightly left to introduce Ripley sneaking up behind him, just barely dirtying the edge of frame. A moment that sort of foreshadows these characters' later confrontation in the Mother mainframe. Now, normally in a scene like this, 2 people arguing, we would cut back and forth between characters throughout. But not here. Ripley even crosses to the other side of the frame while the camera remains fixed on Ash. She's speaking, always just visible enough to know she's there, but we're studying him, laying the groundwork for his duplicity later on, and only when it's time for Ripley to assert her authority do we finally cut to her.
And you let him in.
This kind of framing actually happens all the time in Alien in these types of scenes. We might cut back and forth as characters speak, we might not, but there's always something or a part of someone in frame that tells us exactly where characters are in relation to each other and their environment. More often than not, characters in Alien are staged in groups, not singles. If at least 2 people share a frame, it's never boring, even if it's just a piece of them, and a subtle frame shift can bring attention from one character to another that was just at the very edge before, without having to move from master to single to reaction A, B, C, and D. The reason this stuff is so seamless, the reason all of Alien can achieve these moments that feel totally unbroken, even when there are cuts, is because everything was captured by Ridley Scott and his cinematographer Derek Van Lint together using 2 cameras simultaneously. shots and their crosses, with Scott like Soderbergh shooting the majority of the film himself on main, handheld, always in the action, and Van Lint on second. When two characters are in a scene connected by a common object, they really are together, existing in the same space at the same time, and it's not just a trick of the edit. When every character needs to react to something insane, something that production can only pull off one time and that needs to happen in a single take, multiple cameras let you shoot action and reaction for and to the same event, capturing the raw truth of a moment like no amount of multiple take cutting could. There's a sequence in the Rolling Stones documentary Gimme Shelter where the band is listening to an early recording of Wild Horses for the first time. We never see the object to their attention, the speakers, the booth, nothing that they can see. The camera instead is this totally sentient thing, staring at whatever it wants, however it wants, a fly on the wall in every sense. It's almost grotesquely visceral as we zoom in on every nook and crevice of the band's faces, or again onto a pair of shoes, with no filter at all. And that's what Alien feels like to me, like documentary, not just in that the camera is handheld, but in that it's there to capture the truth of events in a way that feels spontaneous, concurrent, and unpressured by any obligation to what's conventionally understood to be right or good.
Okay, you're dressed, huh? Parker?
Can I finish my coffee? It's the only thing good on this ship.
I'm Danny Boyd. Thank you so much for watching. Hey everybody, today's video was brought to you by Mubi, a curated streaming service dedicated to elevating great cinema from all across the world. From iconic directors to emerging auteurs, Mubi's always got something new and amazing to discover. And that's because with Mubi, every film you see is hand-selected by a team of curators, real people, giving you access to the best of cinema at your fingertips, streaming anytime, anywhere. And if you want to check out another great monster movie from another legendary filmmaker, I encourage you to go check out The Host on Mubi, a film by Bong Joon-ho about a family that has to rescue their daughter from a creature that's terrorizing their city. Critically acclaimed, you can watch it or anything else streaming on Mubi for free with an extended 30-day trial if you go to mubi.com/cinemasticks. Again, that's mubi.com/cinemasticks for a whole month of great cinema for free. Hey, I'm Danny Boyd. Today, the average shot length in a Hollywood film is just about 3 seconds long, which looks something like this.
Some believe that true love imbues a subject with the ability.
That's down from an average of around 5 seconds 25 years ago, and from roughly 10 seconds back in the 1930s and 40s, which looks like this.
No matter how clever he is, he still needs an exit visa. Or I should say 2.
Why 2?
He is traveling with a lady.
I'll take 1.
I think not. I've seen the lady.
If you're interested in reading more about what's contributed to this trend and other historic changes, I'll link to the source of this information below, but today, I'm not here to talk about what's average. I'm here to talk about one of the exceptions, one of my favorite exceptions, and of a $75 million superhero movie, no less. This is Unbreakable, the 2000 film from M. Night Shyamalan, coming in at an average shot length of almost 19 seconds. 23 if you discount a few spare quick cut scenes like this one, but most of Unbreakable is long, highly methodical, and impressively diverse.
Cancer called me today.
In Unbreakable, there are over 30 scenes that are all shot in one take.
Gonna take your love.
It's scary to do because because we never shot any safety coverage. He just knew that this is how the shot was going to appear in the film.
Much like Spielberg, Shyamalan's wonders in Unbreakable aren't really motivated by a particular aesthetic or style as much as they are by a goal to draw a clear and inseparable line between the audience and whatever it is in the scene that's most important at a given moment. In this case, not so concerned about remaining invisible, but simply about asking the question, what can we show with a single shot that would normally require 2 or 3 or 4?
I've never seen this.
So before we delve into the really creative stuff, let's kick off with something simple. 2 characters talking. Conventionally, you might have something like this: shot, reverse shot, both characters of equal weight, cut on dialogue.
I hope you can keep an open mind.
But if you want action and reaction to remain in the same frame...
Before Joseph was born, before we ever got married.
Or maybe you want your characters in singles because they're at odds with each other.
Hope you find them.
The lateral tracking shot is a way to maintain momentum while establishing clear cohesion within a space.
That's not certain at all, is it?
What's particularly interesting about this scene is that even though cuts are replaced by camera moves, unlike a cut,
About all what?
the camera doesn't move at the same rate as the conversation.
Is the child correct?
Which means a character's response to a question...
In college, I was in a car accident.
Was it serious?
He couldn't play football anymore.
might be provided more weight than the question itself. In Unbreakable, long shots are less concerned with what we're trained to think is important and more interested in what's actually important within the context of a scene.
Do you know what the legal consequences of lying on your resume can be in the United States, especially in fields that require licensing like medicine, law, or engineering? Yeah, you can go to prison for fraud from anywhere between 1 year to 30 years in states where fraud is considered a felony.
So hi, my name is Bianca Sensori. I'm an architectural designer from Melbourne, Australia. I currently reside in Los Angeles and I'm a lead architectural designer at Yeezy.
Picture this. Just 1 month after finalizing his divorce with Kim Kardashian, Kanye West is spotted with a mystery woman at the iconic Waldorf Astoria in Beverly Hills. The public would soon discover that this woman was an alleged architect.
AD, it's actually architectural designer.
Architectural designer?
No, sorry, it's architect.
No
Yeah, no.
It's actually called Bianca Sensori. Pretty fancy, pretty impressive, right? And her presence alongside Kanye West from that point on would not only blow up the internet, but also spark a whirlwind of controversy and outrage and concern and confusion. In countries like Italy and France, it even has her reportedly flirting with jail time for allegedly violating the country's public indecency laws. But unlike Kanye's previous partners / muses, and despite her literal overexposure, Bianca Sensori remains a mystery, with no media interaction and scarce background information about her. Her Instagram has vanished and her voice is unheard. This has created quite the information vacuum online that has filled itself with wildly conflicting conspiracy theories. Some whisper that Bianca Sensori's safety is in danger and she's under Kanye's coercive control. We need to save Bianca at once. Others suggest that she might be a mastermind manipulating Kanye for her own fame-hungry, gold-digging gain. In other words, you don't need to worry about Bianca Sensori. This is all part of her game plan. Then, a year after their debut, Kanye would make his first official statement about Bianca. This came in the form of a now deleted birthday tribute that further clued us in to her alleged impressive qualifications and personality traits. Notably, she's a Capricorn, and she allegedly has a master's degree in architecture and 140 IQ, making her a certified genius. He would also tell TMZ that Bianca Censori makes him happy, but that's all we got. And in a world where people and celebrities craft personas, not just to sell us products, but also politics and ideas which have a real world impact, knowing exactly who and what you're buying into is crucial. And that wasn't enough for me. So I embarked on a quest to uncover the puzzling enigma that is Bianca Censori, because I wanted to know if creative to creative, this was someone I could respect and ultimately buy into. But unfortunately for me, it's an investigation that only deepened my intrigue and multiplied my questions, and now I'm annoyed. But I think I might have started to understand the game plan, but I'll definitely need your help to fully crack the case. Who the is Bianca Censori? Truly, what role does she play in this high-profile relationship? What's the game plan, if any? Are the power dynamics as they appear, or is there more lurking beneath the surface? Let's find out. Roughly 6 miles away from the bustling city centre of Melbourne, Australia, lies a serene oak tree-lined suburb called Ivanhoe. Ivanhoe is the kind of neighborhood that's home to historic mansions, elite, top-performing private schools, and stuff like cricket clubs. Ivanhoe is not only where the actress Cate Blanchett is from, but it's also where the 28 or 29-year-old Bianca Censori was raised. Towards the end of 2023 and the beginning of 2024, tabloid media, notably the Daily Mail, started digging into Bianca Censori's alleged upbringing. It was revealed that her parents, Alexandra and Leo Censori, currently resided in a $2.8 million home. Bianca Censori's mother, the housewife Alexandra Censori, was photographed running errands in Melbourne, allegedly carrying a $5,300 Prada bag and driving a Mercedes-Benz. One of her younger sisters, Angelina Censori, was revealed to be an alleged model with no portfolio to show, but somehow able to afford Balenciaga handbags, one of which, if authentic, retailed for over $2,000. As a result of this coverage, the picture/narrative that started taking shape was one of an extremely affluent upbringing, pre-Kanye. The problem, as it is for most of the factual information about Bianca Censori, is that the information almost entirely comes from tabloid media outlets like the Daily Mail. The Daily Mail, according to most media watchdogs, is not a reliable source of factual information. They're known to push conspiracy theories, fake news, get their facts wrong, and in some cases, fabricate things entirely. So, This seemed like the perfect place to begin my own investigation. When you're trying to piece together someone's agenda or motives in a relationship, usually contextualizing where they come from might give you some clues. My first step would be attempting to verify just how rich Bianca Censori's family allegedly is and what kind of socioeconomic class she came from. Being seen with expensive consumer goods like designer clothes, handbags, and cars doesn't mean anything. Even an expensive home doesn't mean much. These items can be inherited, gifted, rented, purchased secondhand, stolen, or funded entirely through debt. Usually, a better indication of someone's socioeconomic status is education. Not just if they got an education, but where they got their education, especially in countries or states where education is not government funded. So I did some digging. According to Bianca Censori's LinkedIn profile, if it's to be trusted, I'm not sure if you've seen the documentary Bitconned, but even LinkedIn profiles can be bullshit. She completed all of her pre-college education at an institution called Carey Baptist Grammar School in Kew, Victoria. Unless the images provided to us by the Daily Mail are doctored, we do have photographic evidence of her attending the institution. This is the Carey Baptist Grammar School uniform, and this is Bianca Censori in it. Checks out. Now, how much does it cost? Is Bianca Censori in it? Checks out. Now, how much? And this is Bianca Censori in it. Checks out. Now, grammar school uniform and cost to attend this institution. The answer is a lot, but it also depends. Carey Baptist Grammar School has two types of scholarships: academic excellence and access, and I doubt speaks in 40. If, as Kanye West claims, her IQ is in fact 140, it's possible that Bianca Censori was an outstanding enough student to earn herself one of these. Family, $87 according to $1 a year, and the price depends on $6,900 and plus 80. Not it too young like this family. Well, as this number is what I think can give us the most in bags, cars, or expensive houses. This number is what I think can give us the most in depth. Called John Sylvester for the Sunday Herald Sun. The story journalist's entire career is not just a journalist, but he's an award-winning journalist who's built his entire career specializing in the Australian underworld. Not only have his books on crime and corruption in Australia gone on to become bestsellers, but he's won, amongst numerous other prizes, the prestigious National Graham Perkin Prize of Australian Journalist of the Year twice. Not to say that journalists can't get their facts wrong, but on a legitimacy